Coming up, Egor Demin takes over to earn the Nets their first Summer League victory. How is he grading out in Las Vegas? I'll answer that after this.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. This show is 100% free on all those great platforms. On today's show, I'm going to be recapping the Nets' first Summer League victory, focusing on the performances of Egor Demin and Danny Wolf and other major storylines surrounding the Nets rookie class as a whole. And Brooklyn picked up their first Summer League win today, 94-90 over the Orlando Magic, a game where they were leading by a lot early. I think they were up by as much as 20, and they nearly choked it away at the very end. And Egor Demin steps up. He comes up big in the clutch. He hit 3 threes in the final 2 minutes of this game to get them the victory. And I just want to focus on his performance at the top of the show, because I think that this showing really said a lot about Demin's mental makeup, about his skill set, about his, his highs, his lows, his bright spots, his flaws, and just where he's at as a player entering his rookie season. So just the stat line first, Egor had 14 points, 5 rebounds, 0 assists, 6 turnovers on 5 of 9 shooting from the field and 4 of 8 from 3. So right there, obviously an interesting stat line. And the first thing I want to highlight is what I think is an extremely important characteristic in a player who is, the Nets' top pick, their first lottery selection in 15 years, and going to be important for any player, but especially one who is going to be under the spotlight that Egor is going to be under. And it's just a little bit of mental fortitude that you see from Egor Demin in this game, in that he really didn't start off well. Like, he made some decent plays through the first 3 quarters of this game, but was, not that big of a factor early on. And then midway through the fourth, the Nets were leading by a lot. And then Orlando started making a run. And that run was aided by a few Egor turnovers that were pretty bad. We had one where he just threw the ball away and then he got stripped. It might've been on back-to-back possessions or 2 out of 3 possessions. And he was struggling. And he was really down, and it didn't look good. And the Nets went from being up 20 to, I think Orlando had cut it to a 2 or 3 point game. And then Egor steps up and he drains 3 threes, as I said, in the final 2 minutes to put this game away and secure the victory for the Nets. And in that spot for this Nets Summer League team that was without Nolan Traore and Ben Saraf in this one, also Drew Timme, who has been the team's best Summer League player that thus far, was sitting out. So it was really, Egor and Danny Wolf were like the top guys in this game. And for Egor to be struggling as he did through the first, 3.5 quarters of this game, and for him to be the one that needs to be leaned on, down the stretch, and for him to be able to bounce back and kind of put those struggles behind him and be able to step up and be able to put kind of the weight of the game on his shoulders in those moments and really, win the game for the Nets. I thought that it said a lot about his mental makeup and his mental fortitude. And, going further into his skill set and what he did, obviously the way that he won this game was his 3-point shooting with those 3 threes in the final 2 minutes. And that really has been the major bright spot of Egor Demin's Summer League so far, because it was a major question, as I've outlined numerous times, entering this season after he shot 27% at BYU. But the Nets have been adamant that Egor is going to be a high-level shooter at the NBA. They haven't said, we think he's going to be. They haven't said, we hope he's going to be. They've said he is going to be a high-level shooter. And a lot of people might have thought that sounded a little foolish or a little ambitious based on what Egor did last season as a shooter. But coming out in Summer League this year, he has really backed up those statements because he's looked extremely comfortable. He's looked like a high-level shooter. It's looked pure, and he's looked just confident at all turns. This is a Nets team, obviously, that wants to take a lot of threes. What we keep hearing is, from Jordy, from Steve Hetzel, the Summer League head coach, from all the players, we want to take 40-plus threes per game. And Egor has clearly embraced that, and he's clearly been confident in letting it fly whenever he's been given an opportunity. Even sometimes in this game where he didn't have an opportunity, he's still trying to let it fly. So that's a major positive. He was 4 of 8 in this game. He's now 10 of 23 in Summer League from 3. So that's 43.5%, 7.7 attempts per game. A lot of the misses, I think, have looked good, especially in his first two appearances. And that's a major positive, because coming into this, we knew the 3-point shooting was a question. And it was a question where it was something, if you look at some of his other shortcomings in his skill set, which I'm about to touch on in a second, it was something where if Egor couldn't shoot and the three-point shooting didn't come around and he shot how he did at BYU, he just was not going to be viable as an NBA player. He wasn't going to be viable as a ball handler because of some of the struggles he has in terms of being a self-creator, in terms of, being able to create separation on his own, some of those things. If you can't shoot along with that, you're pretty much dead in the water against NBA level defenses. And then it would also take away his positional versatility and his ability to play off the ball and fit into different schemes and things the Nets want to do, especially with the guys they picked alongside him in this draft class. So him being able to shoot at this level is really huge. And some of the shots that he made in this one, I think the Magic have cut it to 2 with around 2 minutes left. And he hit a relocation corner 3 where he kind of slid down to the corner, caught a pass, and drained it. We saw him hit another huge shot against the Wizards, I think, to cut it to 1 in the final minute or 2 of that one. Same thing. Ben Saraf drove in that one. He slid down to the corner, relocated. It was almost a movement 3, caught it on the move and hit it. Does that again here for his first 3 in the final 2 minutes. The next one, the Nets were up 4 with, I think, like a minute 20 left, and the Magic missed a shot at the rim, and the Nets had numbers, and somebody was bringing it up the court on the right side. I forgot who it was, but Egor's calling for the ball on the left side. He's open, give me the ball. He gets the pass across the court, and mind you, they're up 4 with a minute and 15 left. They have the whole shot clock. They don't need to shoot. He pulls up and takes a transition 3 off the dribble and just hits nothing but net. So that was really almost a heat check. I asked him about it at the game, and he said, yeah, that was kind of a heat check. So that was a heat check 3, I'd say. And then he hits a corner 3 off the catch off of kind of a scramble play with 40 seconds left, which was truly the dagger. So the way he's hitting threes off the catch, off the dribble, the confidence, some of them from really far out, I just think it's huge. And I think it has been the major bright spot of his performance thus far at Summer League. And it's really been, I wouldn't say the only bright spot, but it's been the major one and the only one that you're really going to write home about. And that says something about some of these shortcomings in other aspects of his game. So I'll touch on what those are and how I think that could play out long term, and how I think it could also relate to the other Nets rookie ball handlers after a quick break. But before that, want to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing money, you're also building wealth. Guys, when I started using Monarch Money, I realized all the different things that you could be spending money on. It helps you track it all in one place and keep track of your spending to meet your financial goals. You also have everything in one place on the app, making it easy to manage the money day to day. And you can also share the app with someone else, whether a significant other, whether a money manager, whether family. It just helps everybody stay on track and make sure that you're getting done what you need to get done. Guys, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Coming out of the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about Brooklyn's first Summer League win and Egor Demin's performance tonight and also at Summer League as a whole. I just outlined Egor's final few minutes of this game, the clutch threes he made, the mental fortitude, and how the three-point shooting has been the major bright spot of what he's done at Summer League this far. And really, not the only bright spot, but the only one that you're going to write home about. And I think that says something about the other areas of his game and the role he's playing and how some of his shortcomings could be forcing him into that role and limiting him in some other areas. And it's really interesting because when you're talking about Egor, this is a guy who the Nets drafted. Everybody considered him a point guard. The thing that everybody said as the major positive was he's the best passer in this year's draft. He's a pick and roll savant. The main skill he brought to the table at BYU was his pick and roll playmaking. And then he gets to Summer League here, and he really hasn't done that at all. He's been an off-ball player. He's been a wing, really, for Summer League. He has not been a point guard. He's been playing on the wing. He's been playing off the ball. He's had 2 games, I think, where he's had 0 assists, had 0 assists tonight and 6 turnovers. So that says something, obviously, about the role he's playing and some of the struggles that he's having. And why is he playing that role? Why is he having those struggles? It all comes down to some things that we knew were weaknesses entering the draft, and we talked about a lot after the draft, and that is his ball handling, his lack of self-creation, his lack of shake, his lack of strength. All of those things are going to make it difficult to handle the ball pressure of NBA defenders. Because if you look at the numbers, as I said, he has, through Summer League this far, he has 4 assists and 8 turnovers. I think he has 2 games where he had 0 assists. So that clearly says a lot about it. And then you look at the shot diet. I said the 3-point shooting was the major positive and one of the only positives. At least, there's other positives in terms of his engagement, in terms of, I think defensively he's held up well, but offensively, you look at it, he's taken 27 shots total through 3 Summer League games. 23 of those are threes. So he's only taken 4 2-point attempts through 3 games at Summer League. He's only made 1, which was actually a really nice play today. It was he kind of broke. They were in the backcourt, inbounding the ball in the nets. He broke free from a couple of players, and he got the ball going downhill with a full head of steam, and nobody stepped in to stop him and pick up the ball, and he threw down a vicious left-handed slam, which was nice to see. It was nice to see some aggression going to the rim, but outside of that one play where he was really wide open, we haven't seen it at all in terms of aggression going to the rim or ability to just get to the rim. As I said, 27 total shots, 23 are threes, 4 assists and 8 turnovers through 3 games. He has not been handling in the pick and roll at all, and he really just hasn't touched the paint. Like, if you talk about his ability to get downhill, his ability to touch the paint and collapse a defense, which is the major skill you're going to want to see if you're going to be a lead ball handler, it just hasn't been there. I've watched 3 games now of Egor playing. He's touched the paint a handful of times. There's been, the first game, I don't know if he touched the paint at all. Today, in the half-court offense, I don't think he touched the paint at all. And that's because he's been playing off the ball. And why is he playing off the ball? Is because he's really struggling handling the ball pressure of some NBA level and some, just a step up from college defenders, the physicality and all of that's going to come with it. So that's been a struggle for him. And why is that? We all know, the handle is not great relative to what you're going to see from other lead ball handlers. He's a guy who's 6'8". He has a little bit of an upright posture. So that ball obviously is coming a lot off the ground. He doesn't really have much shake, much side-to-side burst in order to be able to create separation and get guys off of him. So that is limiting what he's going to be able to do as a pick-and-roll ball handler. And that is the reason that a lot of people that I've talked to have said he's a wing at the next level. That's what he's going to be. He's going to be a wing. And if you look at it thus far in this Summer League, he looks like a wing. Now, can he get, to being a primary ball handler or having the ability to do that? I definitely think you can't rule it out, obviously. We've seen 3 Summer League games. The kid's 19 years old. He's thin. He's going to need to put on weight. I asked Steve Hetzel, the Nets Summer League coach, after the game, if Egor playing off the ball so much and having, such limited pick and roll reps as a lead ball handler was them wanting to see him in a different position, or was it just happening naturally within the flow of the game? And Hetzel said that it was happening naturally. He'd lean more towards that, and that if Egor is going to be a pick and roll ball handler and do those things, he's going to have to get stronger. He's going to have to be able to create space against the guy who's defending him. He's going to have to be able to kind of get that guy off of him using his strength, using his ball handling ability. So he's going to have to get in the weight room, is what Hetzel said. And he said that we did see, obviously, we being the Nets coaching staff and front office, the pick and roll brilliance, the pick and roll playmaking that made him such, a unique player at BYU. And we think, or Hetzel thinks, that he's going to get back to that. He just, Egor just needs to add more strength and things along those lines in order to be handling the physicality of these guys. So him being off the ball and having such limited pick and roll ball handling reps, such limited paint touches, that is really a product of, it's not just the Nets saying, hey, go be on the wing, go, be off the ball. It's Egor, in some cases, not being able to handle the pressure of some of these guys. So that's going to be something that's going to be a major question moving forward for Egor, because if he's going to be a guy who is a primary ball handler, or even not, even if he's playing the wing and he's more of a wing moving forward, his best skill at BYU and his major gift, I mean, his 3-point shooting looks really good right now, but his major thing is being an elite passer, an elite pick and roll playmaker. So if he can't do that, it's just going to limit his ceiling. And now, are there other ways that you can, get him the ball through zoom actions and other things, staggers, things I talked about on one of my last episodes talking about Gilman? Yeah, you could be able to do that. But for him to be, reach his ceiling and his potential, he's going to have to be able to handle in the pick and roll. And he's going to have to be able to, at least, to create advantages in spurts sometimes. So that's going to be really big. And it's really interesting because it's something where it's really the opposite of what we're seeing with the Nets' other 2 rookie ball handlers in Nolan Traore and Ben Saraf. Traore and Saraf I've described as walking paint touches. That's all they do is get into the paint. They break defenders down off the dribble. In Traore's case, he has some moves, but he's just been blowing by guys using his north-south speed. He's one of the fastest players that anybody's seen at Summer League. And then Saraf has this variety of crafty dribble moves. He has the crossovers. He has the spin moves. He has, some blow-by ability. So those guys are just getting into the paint at will and creating advantages at will. But the drawback with them is that they can't shoot at three thus far. They haven't shown, they've been unwilling. And when they have, let it fly from three, it hasn't looked comfortable whatsoever. Traore is 1 for 7 from three through 3 games. Saraf is 1 of 4. So that's 2 of 11 combined through 3 games at Summer League. So obviously that's poor efficiency and the willingness. 11 combined 3-pointers through 3 games for 2 of your lead ball handlers. That's not what Jordi Fernandez wants. It's not what Steve Hetzel or any of the other Nets coaching staff wants. It's not what Sean Marks wants. They want to take 40+ threes a game. And if you're going to be a guy who has the ball in your hands that much, you're going to need to be able to shoot threes at a high rate. And Traore and Saraf just haven't done that. But they've been getting into the paint and creating advantages at will. Gilman has been letting it fly as much as anybody on the team and, top 15 in Summer League, I think, in 3-point attempts per game. So he's letting it fly. He's shooting well. He just can't touch the paint at all, ever. So it's really just an inverse with these 3 guys, 2 with Traore and Saraf and then with Gilman. And it's going to be interesting because for them to reach their ceilings, they're going to need to improve upon those things. In Traore and Saraf's case, I talked about it on my last episode, but they have the advantage creation, they have the speed, they have the playmaking in order to be really intriguing from that sense of being able to create advantages for themselves and for their teammates. But a lot of that and their ceilings is going to hinge on them being able to become consistent, willing, and, efficient 3-point shooters. That is going to determine their viability as lead ball handlers and whether they can really be high-level players in the league. In Gilman's case, if he can continue to shoot the 3 the way that he has, he's going to need to be able to improve as a ball handler, advantage creator, improve his strength and some of the things along those lines. Otherwise, he's not going to reach his ceiling. And he's just going to be a guy maybe who's off the ball, can be, a 3-point shooter and a connective playmaker, but isn't going to really have much on-ball juice or potential. So we kind of got the inverse going between these 2 guys, but I think between these 3 guys, 2 and 1, but I think it is a positive in the sense that there is a concrete skill of something that you're seeing with, all of these guys. In Traore and Saraf's case, it is the advantage creation, the ability to get downhill, touch the paint, collapse the defense. And in Gilman's case, it's a 3-point shooting, something that was a major concern coming out of BYU and something that we said, if it doesn't come around, it's going to be real trouble. So to see him shoot with this level of confidence and at, this level of efficiency, I think is a huge positive thus far. And we're just going to see, he's going to have to get in the weight room. He's going to have to get more comfortable handling ball pressure. I asked him about it and, what the adjustment has been like, kind of working up to, going from the college level to playing against NBA level defenders. And he said it's been a big adjustment. And he said that he went through the same thing last year at BYU where he played some easier opponents early on, and then they got into Big 12 play. He said he had one game against Providence where he played really bad and a lot of people saw it and that was a great learning experience. And then the further that he got into Big 12 play, it was just defenders going at him. It was coaches saying, hey, pressure, 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 go at him. And he said that he felt that really prepared him for March Madness and that it was a good experience for him. And he said that he feels ultimately he's going to get those similar experiences in games at the NBA level and in practices. And he's confident that he's going to be able to transition to it. So we'll see how it goes. I think, Yegor's performance today, there were a lot of positives in terms of the shooting and the mental fortitude. We're just going to need to see how that ball handling, how that strength, how all of that comes along. And, it was a good showing, I thought, in the sense of him being able to bounce back from some early struggles and display a concrete skill in his 3-point shot in the clutch, something that's been a major question. But it wasn't just Egor Demin in this one. It was also Danny Wolf leading the Nets. He had a really productive game after struggling in his first 2 Summer League appearances. So what did he do? What did he have to say about the performance? I'll touch on all that when I close out Locked On Nets after this break. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about Brooklyn's first Summer League win and Egor Demin, the role he played in, and then also Danny Wolf playing a major role in this one. Wolf led the Nets in scoring at 18 points. He also had 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers. He was 6 of 12 from the field and 2 of 4 from 3. And this was an interesting game for Danny Wolf because I think the first 2 games we saw some, hesitance or, him being sped up a little in his own words of him really not knowing where he fits in some of the situations and trying to fit within the flow. And I think that it was really difficult for him from that sense because it's difficult for everybody to find where they fit into the flow of these summer league games because they're so erratic. You have so little practice time leading up to them. And in Wolf's case, he's a big man. I think the big man, it's more difficult for to adjust to these games than it is for the ball handlers because there's just less structure. You need, when you're a big man, sometimes you need things created for yourself. So I think from that perspective, it's difficult for Wolf. And then also, he's playing alongside a traditional center in Drew Timme, who's not necessarily a floor spacer. There's some other guys on the floor with him sometimes, and Saraf, Traore, other guys who weren't floor spacers. So I think him trying to figure out how to navigate all that, him trying to figure out what he's supposed to do with the ball in his hands, him trying to figure out what he's supposed to do off the ball. It looked difficult, and it looked like it was a little bit of a struggle for him through his first two games. But tonight, a little bit of a different look because Drew Timme sat out this one for rest. So it was Wolf getting the start at center and playing most of the game as a 5. He had Grant Nelson alongside him a lot, who's a 4, but not a floor spacer. So, however you want to view that. But the floor spacing was better than it had been in prior games for Wolf. And I think that you saw him look a lot more comfortable, look a little bit more sure of himself in the spots that he was going to play. And in this one, there were a lot of different things that he did. He was, a pick and roll man. We didn't see him operating too much out of the short roll. It was really a lot of self-creation with the ball in his hands and then also some post-ups. And we saw some good glimpses of what he can do. We saw some post-ups where he got down to the rim, he got fouled, or he finished. We saw some where he was able to face up and knock down some mid-range jumpers. We saw a few where he took guys off the dribble. He had one where he went to a nice behind-the-back move, hit a floater. So you're seeing some of the different things that Wolf can do with the ball in his hands. And then also, he hit 2 threes in this one. He was 2 of 4 from 3. I think the Nets coaching staff would like to see those attempts up higher, but he hit 2. A couple of them, or one of them, was really deep. So good to see the 3-point shot. Look positive there, and him to have some touch on that. Also from the mid-range, I think that's a big positive because he's going to have to be able to shoot from 3 to be viable as a 5 or to be on the wing, definitely. So that was nice to see. But Wolf's just a really interesting guy, and he's a guy that I've said up to this point I can't really pin down what his role is going to be with the Nets or in the NBA long term. I think a lot of draft people couldn't, and that's why they had so much trouble. He was a very polarizing prospect, and a lot of people didn't know where to put him. A lot of people were very in on him. A lot of people were very out on him. And when you look at how he's fit in thus far through 3 summer league games, for me, it just continues to be the same questions because he's such a unique player where he has at Michigan, he was a pick and roll ball handler. That's really what he did. He was like a point forward, a 0.4, playing alongside a traditional center a lot there. And he was a pick and roll ball handler. He was able to create separation. He was able to use his size to get downhill and to finish and also to make some plays for his teammates. But he's not the, fastest guy side to side. He's not really guy who's creating a ton of separation just by virtue of speed or anything like that. So at the NBA level where guys are bigger, faster, stronger, how does that advantage creation, that pick and roll ball handling, all of that stuff play against those guys? Is he still going to be able to do it at the level that he did in college? That's the question. And, if that's going to be what he's doing and he's playing more of a 4 or a wing, that's one spot. And then if he's playing center, the 3-point shot has to come along. And also he's not presenting a lob threat. So he's a little bit more of a gadget player that you use there in specific looks because, he's not a lob threat. And also, he's going to be a guy, if you're not a lob threat, you need to be able to space the floor. So how does the 3-point shot come along? Does that advantage creation hold up in order to let him play other positions? And then obviously defensively, where does he fit in as a non-rim protector? Can he be, a defensive anchor for the minutes that he needs to at center and hold up there? And if not, and he's playing the 4, can he hold up against some of these quicker players? It's all the same questions. I think we saw some positives from Wolf today in this one. I think he looked more comfortable in his decision-making. I think he looked more comfortable getting to his spots, using his body. I asked him after the game what the biggest transition has been to playing against NBA-level competition. He said just knowing how to use his body and leverage his body to get to his spots. And that's something where he's going to need to be able to do that because, as I said, against NBA, he's a guy in Michigan. He was able to create some separation. He has this funky, herky-jerky style that he plays with. And he was able to, create separation, get some shots off or passes off against those level defenders. But with the step up in size, with the step up in quickness of these NBA level guys, he's really going to need to have to lean more into that size when he's going downhill and know how to use his body to angle it and, leverage himself into positions where he has a little bit of an advantage. So that's an adjustment for Michigan. And he said so far, he thinks that's been the biggest adjustment. It's some things that he didn't necessarily have to do at Michigan because the defenders just weren't at this level. But now he's going to need to do that. He's going to need to learn how to use his body a little bit better. And I think that there's a lot to work with Danny Wolf in terms of the ball handling, in terms of the natural feel for the game and playmaking ability. And I think the touch on the shot, if it can come around and be legit, I think that is an encouraging package and an encouraging, set of skills that could lead him to be an interesting player in multiple schemes and multiple varieties. And I think we saw some of that today. So encouraging performance from Danny Wolf, encouraging close to the game by Egor Demin. And we're going to have one more Nets Summer League game on Friday. I am not going to be there. I am leaving Las Vegas tomorrow. I've spent 7 nights in Las Vegas. I think it's longer than anybody should be in Las Vegas. So I'm heading out of here, but I will continue to have more coverage of Summer League, the final game, and all of the fallout from what all these different players showed here on Locked On Nets. But that does it for today's episode. Thank you to all of you for tuning in and supporting the show. If you do not already, subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoyed this video and my content, be sure to like, comment, anything you can do to engage. Let me know what you thought about Egor Demin's performance. Let me know what you thought about Danny Wolf today. Let me know about, your feelings about Traore and Saraf and all of those things. I'll try to reply to as many as I can, but I will be back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.